Mike, last week on the podcast, we discussed the issue of how the CDC classifies COVID-19 deaths. And I understand you've gotten some feedback from our listeners on this issue. What are you hearing?
Well, I actually heard a lot. And I have to say that, I'm accused by my family as explaining the world in analogies. I think that's my simplistic mind that doesn't understand things if they're very complicated. I found someone whose analogies were something I was very attracted to. This is from Megan. And it's not surprising that Megan is a professor of English and history and had a very thoughtful analogy to understand this point of comorbidities and what it means in terms of what you die from. Remember the debate about the fact that there were 184,000 deaths and only 9,000 were recorded at CDC as having died from COVID-19 as all by itself, where the other ones had these comorbidities listed. And so Megan took my previous analogy of a forest fire and how this was burning and said, well, this really can help explain also the idea of when we talk about deaths, what is the cause of death? And she said, and I'm quoting here, we know that some things increase the risk of wildfires and also increase the risk of wildfires become dangerous. For example, a hot, dry weather accelerates fires. A long-standing drought makes the countryside extremely dry and a flammable tinderbox. High winds blow the flames and embers farther afield. When a person has a comorbidity like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, COPD, it's kind of like when the landscape is extra vulnerable to bad wildfires due to heat, drought, or high winds. If a wildfire or COVID starts under these conditions, it's much more likely to become dangerous and even fatal. But the cause of death would still be COVID, the wildfire, not the drought, not the tinderbox, not the high winds. And I think this is an incredibly thoughtful way to look at this. The fire is what did it. The tinderbox was there beforehand. The droughts were there beforehand. All of those things that make that forest fire so bad are still there. But it is the fire that ends up causing the problem. And that's what this virus is. The virus is the fire. And these other risk factors are clearly a precipitating factor. But, you don't die from the drought. You don't die from having high winds, you die from the fire. And so I think that all I can say is, Megan, thank you. That was an incredibly thoughtful piece of information. And I hope that helps others understand this idea of comorbidities and actual cause of death.